Let's talk about the budget battle and the rest of what's going on Capitol Hill, and there's a lot of it. Nebraska Republican Senator Ben Sasse is our guest tonight. Senator, thanks for being here.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
We just had the CBO score, Congressional Budget Office score, of the health care bill that passed the House, and just bullet points: reduces the deficit by $120 billion over 10 years. Insurance markets would be stable. Premiums would increase average of 20% in 2018, 5% in 2019, lower 4% in states that don't take the waiver. But you'd have 23 million more people uninsured. Your assessment of this and how it factors in to the health care debate in the Senate?
Yeah, so the House bill was not going to be the bill we were going to vote on in the Senate either way. So the House passed something that sort of created a reset moment for the Senate to tackle repeal and replace. And what I want to see is a health care system where American families can buy the policy they want that goes with them across job and geographic change. And frankly, this city hasn't been serious about dealing with the health care reform that we're going to need 5 and 10 years from now in quite some time. So that's what I'd like to see us do in the Senate.
The Senate Majority Leader just today told Reuters, "I don't know how we get to 50 votes at the moment, but that's the goal." You're saying it's a full reset and start over from scratch.
I was saying that well before this House bill score came out from CBO today. I haven't read the CBO report this afternoon that just came out, but I've heard those top line numbers you mentioned. But I mean, the reality is Obamacare exacerbated more problems than it mitigated, but it's not sufficient for Republicans to just say what's wrong with Obamacare. We need to admit that there were structural problems in American health care well before Obamacare. And the biggest driver of uninsurance in America is actually job change. It's not socioeconomic status, it's not health status, it's job change, and that's going to happen more and more rapidly. We need to create a health care system where families can take a policy with them across job and geographic change.
But do you buy that Republicans now own it because you have the White House, the Senate, and the House?
Obamacare was passed with 60 votes. There's sort of a myth out there that it was passed by budget reconciliation. It wasn't. It was passed before Ted Kennedy died. Then it was modified by reconciliation. So it was modified on a 51-vote basis. We have 52 Republicans. You really need 60 votes to fully repeal and replace Obamacare. And so most of the debates inside the Senate are about how to tweak it and change it. What we really should be having is a debate, and the Democrats should have to come to the table, since they promised a bunch of things on Obamacare that didn't come true. Average family was going to have premiums reduced $2,500. They went up $3,000 a family. We really need a debate about creating a portable health care system. So this has been broken well before the Obamacare fiasco, and now the limited 4 or 5 months that Republicans have had the different branches of government.
Senator Portman said today that he does think at the end of the year, the calendar year, that tax reform is very possible. Do you agree with that, and do you have to do health care before you do tax reform?
You know, sometimes because of budget nerdiness, these two debates are linked together. But no, you don't have to do them in that order. I hope Senator Portman's right that we can do tax reform. We need to do fundamental tax reform that broadens the base, lowers the rates, carves out all the special exemptions and loopholes and barnacles that benefit the politically connected in this city. But the fundamental problems in America at the fiscal level are ultimately about entitlement overpromising and entitlement spending. We should do tax reform as well. They don't have to be sequenced in either particular order.
I want to turn now to the Russia investigation. A lot was made, and obviously the Capitol Hill is waiting for Jim Comey to testify publicly. A lot was made of the New York Times report when it first came out of this memo allegedly saying, "I hope you can see," that President Trump said to him, "I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. He's a good guy. I hope you can let this go." Others point back to testimony that Comey gave later, May 3rd. Take a listen.
Can they halt that FBI investigation?
In theory, yes.
Has it happened?
Not in my experience, because it would be a big deal to tell the FBI to stop doing something that without an appropriate purpose. I'm talking about a situation where we were told to stop something for a political reason. That would be a very big deal. It's not happened in my experience.
Not happened in his experience, he says in that testimony. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we need to have Director Comey testify in full and open session before the U.S. Senate so we can ask a lot of hard questions. I mean, you know, this whole Russia thing, there are a number of things we failed to get right in the way we analyze it. There's a distinction between an investigation into past potential criminal activity. There's a whole bunch we need to know, and Putin is an enemy of the U.S. He's an enemy of free speech, assembly, press, religion. We need to get that U.S. and Russian interests aren't aligned. We need to know more about 2016. But more fundamentally, we need to recognize what's going to happen in cyber attacks in the future, in 2018 and 2020. And I don't want us to take our eye off the ball of recognizing that Russian attempts to influence American elections, and more fundamentally, sow discord of American against American, that's going to get more aggressive in the future with the new technologies that will enable more aggressive Putin info ops. We need to do both things at once.
Do you sense, I hear it in sound bites from Democrats, going from collusion allegations to obstruction of justice focus?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how quickly a lot of folks will try to use any new, sort of instant media soundbite culture to take a 24/7 cycle and immediately have echoes of bad historic catastrophes past. We should let Bob Mueller conduct his investigation in a step-by-step, deliberate way. The American people, again, regardless of who you voted for, blue jersey or red jersey in the 2016 cycle, the American people should be comforted that Bob Mueller, who's an adult and a trustworthy public servant, is running that investigation, and I think people shouldn't get out over their skis with all the sound bites.
You obviously were not a vocal fan of candidate Donald Trump. President Donald Trump's on this trip overseas. Your assessment of some of these images and what's coming back from it?
Yeah, so I think one of the things the president is rightly trying to focus attention on is getting to pan-Sunni Arab cooperation against an expansive Iranian effort to undermine nation states in that region. We need to recognize that we are not at war with Islam, and yet the jihadis that we face often do have a religious motive, and we need to be able to support our allies in the region as they try to clamp down on these ungoverned spaces that become terror training sanctuaries. Iran is the key perpetrator of trying to undermine so many nation states in the Middle East that then become these ungoverned spaces where terrorists plot their future attacks. So I think one of the things the president's right to be doing and his national security team is right to be doing is trying to get a bunch of different Muslim nations who don't believe in killing in the name of religion to ally with us and try to squeeze out these places where the terrorists and the jihadis train.
I want to talk about your book, just out, The Vanishing American Adult, now #3 on the New York Times bestseller list, and an excerpt from it I'll read quickly. Although it is not universally fair, millennials have acquired a collective reputation as needy, undisciplined, coddled, presumptuous, and lacking much of a filter between their public personas and their inner lives. As one New York Times story about millennials in the workplace put it, managers struggle with their young employees' sense of entitlement, a tendency to overshare on social media, and frankness verging on insubordination. Growing up involves coming to recognize the distinction between who we still are today and who we seek to become. Our hope is that our young people will begin to own the Augustinian awareness that not everything we long or lust for is something we should really want. So give me the elevator speech on your book.
Yeah, so we are not celebrating scar tissue with our kids like we need to. We live at the richest time and place in all of human history, and our kids are growing up without a connection to work that almost everybody has always known throughout history. Adolescence is a gift, this sort of protected space where you hit puberty, you hit biological adulthood, and we don't say you immediately have to be a fully economically, emotionally, morally, household structure, school leaving wise, independent adult. There's this sort of greenhouse phase where we transition from the protected dependency of childhood to independent, full flourishing adulthood. But adolescence is supposed to be a means to an end. It's not a destination. Peter Pan is a dystopia. It's a hell. It's not a utopian dream. We don't want our kids stuck in Neverland. We want 10 and 15 and 20 and 25-year-olds to be going through stages of maturation and growth and development. We want them to take the training wheels off. And this book is a constructive project. How should we think about habit formation for our teens and our 20-somethings? It's not at all about politics, but it's not beating anybody up. But if we were going to beat somebody up, it's we, the parents and grandparents, that need to do a better job of celebrating scar tissue with our kids.
Started reading it. It's a fascinating read. Senator, thanks for the time.
Thanks for having me, Brett.